I'm here with Junior, Coach Junior. For some of you, I know all of you that have been at Fall State, we know Coach Junior. For me, one of the top youth development minds. I've had the opportunity to work with him for the last 2 years, and so we're so excited to have him on our video podcast series. And so today's topic, we're going to be talking about habits. Junior, we're so happy to have you. How are you, man?
Good. Thank you for having me, Coach. Yeah, I'm excited. A little nervous, but yeah, excited to be here.
I feel you on that. It is nerve wracking sometimes, but nah. Me and you, we always talk about habits, right? And I think we're gonna go right into it. Habits, I always say, and I've been saying, is like your boarding pass. It's either taking you to a beautiful destination or it's taking you to a not so good destination. We hound on habits, right? And in the DMV, like we work with some of, I think, some of the best players in the DMV and some middle of the pack. How would you say, in your observation, how are, as a whole, how are the habits in the athletes that we train? Do you feel like the DMV has a culture of like high talent, very good habits, or maybe not so good habits? How would you read or discern the situation?
I think we have a, I think we have a great player pool in general. Uh, I think that's where it hurts our player pool, if anything. I think the habits kind of affect them a little bit when it comes to that, just because I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I
Like
feel you.
growing up, I always tell you, and I always tell the coaches and everything, and the players as well when we're at Caps is when we grew up, it was kind of different. Our habits were kind of already instilled into us at a
Yeah.
much younger age, where these kids at like 11, 12 are already they already have those kind of bad
Yeah.
habits
Yeah.
that we're kind of trying to figure out and kind of work around and kind of get them to build those, not kind of tear them down so we can build them back up in a way.
Right.
So I definitely think they have decent habits, but they could be better.
Better.
I think we have a great talent, great player pool with great talent. It's just the habits are kind of holding them back a little bit.
That's a big one, and I think this is where I think the exposure and the kind of the awareness to the parents that are
Mm-hmm.
like, look, like you can have a super talented kid, but you're not going to outgrow your habits. Eventually, your habits will come and they will put you where you belong. And so, me and you both had the opportunity to go to Dallas for some clinics, and we've
Yep.
been there, and that's kind of where we start to see, like, hey, these kids are just as talented as the DMV, and I would say the talent is very similar. But I think what separates, the kids from Dallas, Southern California, and Florida are the habits. When you went to Dallas, what were some of the, and when we've been to these camps and working with these various different types of players, would you say the habits are the difference?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I think it's like night and day almost. Where
Yeah.
like over there they have the great habits of work rate and being able to work off the ball and those small little details that we try to implement here in the DMV, whereas in the DMV doesn't. They're kind of lacking there. So
Yeah.
they might be more technical than those players in like the Dallas area, but Dallas would outwork the DMV players
Yeah.
by by
By
100%,
a lot.
by a lot. So I think that's one of the bigger things, or like the biggest differences between us here in the DMV and
Other states. Yeah.
other states that are that also have high development rates and very good player pools that are coming out of those areas. So
That's so true. What would you say, in your opinion? Why would you say the habits are such an issue right now in this area? I would say, what do you think it is? Obviously, we know why, and we can't fully go into why,
yeah, I was about to say it might be.
but we can try to like go in a little bit. Like, where do you think the habits start?
I think something I was just talking with Coach Sidney about was your environments.
Yeah.
I think your environments, and not just to only point fingers at clubs, but just environments in general. So like clubs, maybe friend groups or
Yeah.
training groups that you also other training groups that you also go to, because we're obviously not the only training
Absolutely. Yeah.
academy in the DMV. So I think it's just environments and where you're at, because also something that I've had to learn along my journey in becoming a coach and going through a journey as a player as well is my environment did affect me when I was younger, and looking at you guys and how you guys had your environments and how you guys built those great habits that made you guys go pro, where I only got the chance to go to D3 was
Yeah.
because of those bad habits that I personally had, and I didn't break those until I was maybe 19, 20 years
Yeah.
old.
And it's too late by
It was
then.
way too late by then.
Yeah.
I was a Sunday league warrior. I was
Yeah.
playing in a bunch of Sunday leagues. Maybe UPSL was like the highest I
Yeah.
got. So that was like the biggest thing for me. So like environment for me is like huge.
It's huge, and those that when I see you play, you definitely have a very high technical ability, and it goes to show, like, again, you can be extremely technical, you can be all of the above, but if your training habits, and it's habits, when we say habits, it's body language, it's work ethic, it's how do you act before you receive a pass, what do you do after the pass. These are all things that are part of that. And so you can't outgrow your habits and environments, right? I
Yep.
think you said something very important, right? We believe, and you believe, and we're both testaments of our environment. And so would you say you can't outgrow your environment?
No. Well,
Here and there, right?
I think to a certain extent, I think you can, but by the time you do outgrow it, it's most likely too late.
You
Most
got
likely.
yeah, you're right. You got to find a way to be around places that challenge you and get you out of your comfort zone. I say a big issue now too is because the youth soccer landscape is so competitive, people want to keep their star players, because if they don't keep their star players, then they can't attract better players
Mhm.
and they can't get better results. And so I feel like one of the biggest issues, I don't know, have you seen this as well, where clubs, training groups let players get away with things because they can't lose those players. And so they give the player too much power. And something that I love about having you around, that I've seen, the star player of the age group will be at a session or certain age groups, and you'll go into them.
Yeah.
You'll tell them, hey, you're not defending, you're not doing this, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. And sometimes I always see the look in their face, they're like, how is someone saying this to me? And it's like you're coming from a good place, because habits can either make or break you. Have you seen that as well?
Oh, 100%. 100. I see all the time at our sessions. I see it at games when we had games and I got
Yeah.
to go watch other teams play and stuff. I got to see that a lot as well. And it's kind of like that's the environments you kind of want to the environments that let you get away with this stuff. That's what you want to stay away from.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I again like you just said, I do it it comes from a good place.
Yeah.
It comes from the heart, because I wouldn't feel comfortable pushing somebody that wasn't capable of doing that. I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. Where if I know you're capable of something, I'm 100% gonna push you.
Yeah.
And if I'm gonna push you harder. Like a lot of times, I'll tell those top kids that we have at our camps, I'll tell them, be like, hey, you have to set the standard for
Yeah.
training. Because if you set the standard, everybody else will kind of follow along. They'll see like, okay, this person's leading by example. Okay, I gotta follow that, or I gotta do even better. You know.
That's so true. No, and we've seen it. Like we always say at our sessions, everyone contributes to the session, either being top level or just another session. And so I've enjoyed seeing you do that, and because we come like from a different perspective, we are coming from a place of that I've seen. It's like we're not in with like the political games of the
Yeah.
youth soccer world. Like we're not. I think ignorance is bliss in a way. Like I don't know like the political system that everyone is a part of. I hear about it, but I'm like, I cannot relate to you. And I know you too. And every single one of our coaches, we're all former players. We're all people that love the game. And so I've been around the block a little bit, and I'm starting to hear things and like understand the hierarchies and the political systems of how things work. And it's like, yo, I have no idea. Like I understand what you're saying, but like we don't come from that. We're literally in youth soccer to produce pros and D1 athletes and to get the best out of every player. And so I've loved seeing that from you in the sessions. Is I don't care if you're a national champion. I don't care if you're second or third team. Like habits, 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 habits. And like you said, you and I have both coached really high level teams, and we've both coached some players that need a lot of work. And you're right. You cannot press those kids that can't be pressed. And if you're being pressed, it's because you have what it takes. And do you feel like in this generation, everyone says like, oh, I'll be honest. People say it's soft. This next generation of players is soft, highly talented. Yes, highly talented, but people always use the term they're soft, right? And I think it's because there's superstar syndrome, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of
100%.
superstar syndrome going on. And so, would you say, did superstar syndrome exist when we were growing up?
Honestly, not really,
Not
because
really,
at the
right?
end of the day, like a lot of those top players I grew up playing with, like I grew up playing with some top players that went on to play at Tech, went on to play in MLS and stuff like that. And those guys were always the first ones at training sessions and always the last ones to leave training
Mm,
sessions. Or the first ones to do extra training sessions, like
mm,
texting in the group chat, hey, does anybody want to go train today? Or does anybody want to go get some touches in? Anybody want to go for a run? Any type of stuff like that. Like that came from our best players.
yeah,
So everybody else was just trying to follow along and keep up pretty much. So I
it's a
mean,
culture, man.
yeah, and the environment again. The environment, even at myself, I played for Loudon
Right.
my entire life, and what's it called? We might have not been the best club in the area. I think we were like maybe fourth,
Yeah, yeah,
fifth best. We are always up there, but I think that's what kind of kept us there. That we didn't have enough of those guys. Where other clubs like your guys' club
yeah,
had multiple of those guys. Kind of, hey, I really want to reach that level. Was for us, we only had like two or three, but that still was the goal. You know
yeah.
what I mean? That was our environment that we were in. So
That's so good. And I would like going back to like we everyone again within coaches again we're giving people some very insider. A lot of coaches compare this generation and they say it's soft, right? What are some things that we can do or coaches can do to kind of counteract that culture of players being soft and too easily broken? Why do you think they're so easily broken, and what can we do as coaches?
I think it's like a little bit of that superstar syndrome to a certain
Yeah.
extent. Not so much with superstars, but just with like they want to be liked or they don't want to like upset parents or
Yeah.
anything like that. Where for the way I look at it is, I always tell whatever team I'm coaching, I always tell the parents at the very beginning that before we even start sessions is, hey, I'm doing this for your kids. Like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to do what's best for them. I want to help them get better in every aspect of the
Yeah.
on and off the field. So if that means I'm gonna have to push them a little bit harder and kind of not just give them what they want or just be like, yeah, it's okay, like don't worry about it next time or something like that, it's like that's hurting them in the long run.
Yeah.
So something that's super important to me is kind of that is like setting that standard of, hey, I might be tough on the kids, but it's not because I'm being tough on them for my ego or
Right.
for like just to hear my own
Yeah,
hear
your
my
own
own
voice.
voice. You
Yeah.
know, I'm not doing that. I'm doing it because this is something I believe in and it's something the way I grew up playing as well. And so
Yeah.
trying to teach them like certain lessons that till this day still carry on,
Yeah.
and I still use it in my everyday life pretty much.
Absolutely. And I've seen that, and that's why I remember when we connected before False Eight a couple times training, but then I remember I saw you when I coached against you.
Yeah.
We were both coaching maybe a crop of kids that needed a lot of support, I would say.
Yeah.
They definitely weren't the most talented players, but it's something that I really enjoyed seeing when we did match up and we played against each other is the kids on both teams were warriors. And so and they I remember watching your team and I was like, "Whoa, this guy doesn't have like a crop of that much talent, but these kids look like mini like Uruguay's national team of Bielsa. They're like pressing, they're playing diagonal, they're countering, and they're like they can barely pass a ball. But that's just a testament to your philosophy and your way of coaching. And you run and coach and own an UPSL team called Petroleros, and you work with a lot of older players. If anyone gets a front row seat at the consequences of bad habits or talents that could have been or talents that maybe aren't where they need to be because they're kind of on a detour because they have bad habits, you see it up front.
Yep.
You watch the
Yep.
UPSL level, and I call the UPSL level a good league, a good pathway league, but at the same time, you see, I think it's it's a very scary place because you have a lot of players that have the ability to play at very high levels, but their habits took them there. And so, from looking at it from now coaching older players, do you see the bad habits in these old players?
100%, 100%. Because I get a lot of like, oh, if I didn't get injured, or oh, if I had more like the opportunity, and I'm like, well, if you had good habits, get the opportunity. Or if
Yeah.
you had good habits, you wouldn't have gotten injured because you would have taken care of yourself. Obviously, there's always
Yeah, there's stories. Right?
crazy injuries, and you can't really always control that. But at the end of the day, like if they had good habits, and honestly, I tell this to my guys all the time, like to their face, like when we're having our team chats, I always tell them, like, because a lot of times egos kind of get in
Yeah.
the way, and I have to like bring them together and kind of bring them back down to earth. I'm like, hey, if you guys were good enough, if you guys had the habits for it, you guys wouldn't be here.
You wouldn't be here.
You wouldn't be here right now. So I don't know what everybody's getting all riled up for, thinking they're this and that. Like, oh, I'm the best. Like, no. Like, if you were that good, you wouldn't be here.
And that's the thing. You said it, and a lot of these players were superstars in the youth days.
Yep.
They were playing on national pathway clubs. They were playing at the highest level, DC United Academy, you name it. A lot of them played at very high levels. And again, habits, you cannot outgrow your habits. And that's something that we try to instill at Fall State, because bad habits are very scary. I look at them as they are the cancer to the growth of many players. And it's that serious, because you're going to tell me a kid loves the game. A kid is dreaming of going, bro. How can we not? And I'm telling you, the bad habits, not defending, right? Not being a player that's good on transition, not having a clean first touch, not scanning, not playing at full speed. Those things destroy the careers of so many players. And you can see at the highest level, it's all a game of details. And that's what we're trying to teach at Fall State, and trying to like wake up the modern youth player is like, yo, you need to wake up, because when you play at these highest levels, it's not going to be easy, and you can't just turn on a switch. You can't turn on a switch. Like a lot of these players right now with the talent level and at the level that they play at, they can turn on a switch.
Yeah.
But at the highest levels you've seen, you can't turn on that switch. How important is always being on in training, and why? Why would you say it's so important for players to play at a high intensity in training and play at game speed? Because a lot of players, they train at training tempo, but game tempo isn't really something they're used to. It's so weird. We see it all the time. Like, you're so good, why are you training so slow?
Yeah.
Why do you think? How important is it to play at game speed, and why?
I mean, it might sound like corny or cheesy, but
Yeah.
like it's honestly, it comes down to you practice how you play how you practice.
Yeah.
Like however you're practicing is exactly what you're gonna do on game day. So if you're kind of going half speed at practice, during game day, your body just doesn't know what full speed is.
Yeah.
You're just not used to it, so you can't do it constantly. So I think one of the best things you always tell the kids is, we make you guys do it 100 times so you can do it 5 times perfectly.
Yeah.
Which is for me the biggest thing, and the biggest thing I took away from Fall State in general is just kind of the repetition.
Yeah.
The importance of repetition, and kind of making sure you're training exactly how you want to perform in the game.
Yeah.
Without that, it just kind of, it kills it really. And
Yeah.
and you see so many, and it's not even those things that you said. Like, it comes down to like smaller things as well, like the small habits of like, can you pass and then immediately sprint and find another open space?
Yeah.
And not just pass and then just watch. Because how many players, even our top players, we see them sometimes and they play a great ball, but then they get just stuck there, just, oh, I played a great ball. And then it's like, all right, what's next? Like, what are you doing next?
Yeah.
You
That's so good, man, because they don't realize, a lot of players don't realize the highest levels require a movement off the ball that's not, it's like you've got to make 2 or 3 movements off the ball, because defensive structures are they're so good that and players are so passionate about winning their 1v1 duel that you got to move 2-3 times without the ball in order to get a touch on it. And that's a culture that we're trying to establish. And you coaching at the UPSL level, which is a high level, there are players that have gone from UPSL to La Liga.
Mm-hmm.
There are stories, but you start to see, even at the UPSL level, how bad habits, you could be playing well. But your bad habits can cost you 3 goals in 3 minutes, and you lose a game.
Trust me, we know a lot about that this year.
Yeah,
like
hey.
this season it really happened to us. I want to say a good majority of our games where we're playing attractive ball. We're playing
I've seen it.
We're playing really good ball, like very technical, moving the ball, moving off the ball, and all it takes is literally 20 seconds of just, I turned off for 20 seconds, and then boom, they just put a goal in. And then you turn off for another 20 seconds, boom, another goal goes in. So you might have put together 87 minutes of great play, But in those 3 minutes that you were turned off, they scored 3 to 4 goals on you, and that's the game.
And that's it, man. And that's what we're trying. And that's what we're always preaching. We literally, we were talking about it with the coaches. Is like, ow, our throats hurt after this is a week off that we have from camp, and our throats are shredded because we're trying so hard to get it through the players. You have to be switched on every single second of training. Every single rep of training needs to be at 100% because there's no way you can play like you said, like at the UPSL level, it's seconds, 10, 15 seconds of being switched off. At the highest levels, it's 1-2 seconds.
Yeah, barely.
1-2 seconds, and you're getting caught. And so you have to train your concentration to be able to be locked in for so many minutes. And so we've seen that, man. We're on this journey because at the end of the day, the talent is there.
Yep.
The talent is
It
there in
really
the DMV. Like it is there nationwide. We go to camps, we go to clinics, we do things nationwide, and it's like there is talent. But the biggest like challenger right now is the habits, right? And it's a very scary thing, and it's something that we want to talk about because we need to bring it to the attention of parents. Like, do you feel like we always talk about it, but do you feel like technology and kids being on their phone is zapping their attention span so then they can't be locked into sessions? Like, you got these kids just glued to phones.
Yeah, I definitely can see that because it's crazy. Like I'll have like a group of kids and we're getting ready for like a drill or maybe a rep somewhere, and I'll be talking to them, and by like 10 seconds into the talk, or I'm like speaking to them, I can see their eyes immediately just like kind of glaze off or like
Zone out a little.
zone out a little bit, and then it just they're not locked in anymore. I'm just like, come
Get
on,
back
like
in.
I just started talking. You got to be able to pay attention a little bit longer. Like you can't be looking over where's my mom, or like you're
What's
at the
going
training
on? Yeah.
like or there's water leaking from the roof or something like
Yeah.
that. It's like you got to be able to like take these distractions away, because at the end of the day, playing in front of
Thousands. Yeah.
thousands and thousands of people, those distractions are going to be there. So you got to be able to kind of
Lock in.
lock in there. And yeah, technology is definitely, I think, is just
It's hurting. Hey, it's hurting because it's like, again, people don't realize we talk about technical ability, we talk about tactical IQ, game IQ, we talk about foot skills, but like the training of the concentration, like to be locked in, like the biggest insurance policy that any youth player can have is a continuous process of building up that focus power. So then when they get to the highest levels, they can actually stay locked in because, again, you and I said it, like we had different careers, but we have similar stories where it's our bad habits caught up with us. And we always tell our stories of, I didn't like to defend and that caught up with me. And it's like, imagine this. And this is why it's like we're so big on habits. You've spoken on it before as well. Imagine this. You train your whole life. You're doing extra training. You're going to all these tournaments. You're playing all this futsal. You're developing, and you're good enough to get to the next level, and then you can't stay at the highest levels because you don't have the concentration to do so. You don't have the habits to do so. What do you think? And maybe this is it's not throwing people under the bus, but do you think clubs have something to do with this?
I think to a certain extent, I definitely think so. Just to hit on like that environment again, I think it comes down to that, because a lot of kids do spend most of their careers at one club.
Yeah.
Because I at least nowadays I don't see a lot of switching.
Yeah.
To a certain extent, I think because of that kind of player treatment of like,
Yeah.
oh, I can't lose my best player, so I'm gonna give you everything I can.
Yeah.
So I do think it's a little bit on the clubs, but honestly, it's more on like the coaches or like
Individual
themselves. Like,
coaches,
us,
yeah.
us as coaches, we
Yeah.
have to take responsibility over these youth players that we're creating. Because at the end of the day, like obviously we're not their parents,
Right.
but in some ways we are their soccer
For parents. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like they're learning a lot of their habits and a lot of their quirks, their mannerisms from us. So
Yeah.
like if we're teaching them bad things, or if we're focusing on the wrong things, they're also gonna focus on the wrong
That's
things.
so good. No, that's really cool. I like that. Soccer parents. No, we definitely take that responsibility because, again, the ecosystem of youth soccer, and we're touching back on superstar syndrome. Do you ever see players and when they just walk in, you're like, oh, look at this guy.
Yeah, a good amount.
A good amount. It's very like, oh, like look at this player, and it's like you feel for them because what I think parents and players fail to exist. This isn't the first time that superstars superstars show up in the youth game. I mean,
Yeah.
again, back in the day, like from our generation, 95, 96, 97 generation, in the DMV, I can count at least, if you combine the three age groups, we had at least 40 to 60 players
Yeah.
go pro at some level, like maybe not Europa League or Champions League, but they went to play in Peru's first division. They went to play in the Ukrainian first division, or, they played in the second division in the USL. So the DMV and many of these big cities that we go to, they've been producing players for a long time. And so you see it with our national teams. For example, my parents are from El Salvador, your parents are from Bolivia. We have, like, you see it with our national teams. They're very talented technically, very gifted, but the lacks in the training ground because they're so technical, and maybe being so technical, sometimes you see players that maybe aren't as technical, you see them be so in the details
Yeah.
because so we're creating these mastermind technicians, which is great. Without it, it makes things that much easier. But do you feel like these players think they're too technical and so they like neglect the defensive side, the transition, the running, the getting stuck in? Do you feel like that's kind of giving them a false sense of like confidence?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I definitely think they're kind of just hiding behind that technical ability and just being like, "Hey, I can do all this, so I don't have to do this anymore."
Mm.
And I think a lot, like, what attributes to that, or like what kind of adds to that is kind of like, I don't think kids watch enough soccer nowadays,
Mm.
or like fully watch it, like sit down, watch a full 90 minutes, and like pay attention the entire full 90 minutes, and not just on TikTok and like, oh, something happened, I'm looking
Yeah.
up. Where it's like, I definitely think they just need to like pay attention more to like watching and like watching film in general of themselves, because I like yeah, I just think that that's kind of hurting them right now,
Big
especially
time.
like not being able to see like, okay, I don't only have to do this, I have to do everything else to be able to use my
Mm.
technical abilities.
Mm.
Like I have to work off the ball, I have to go track back and defend, I have to move off the ball just so I can get my, what is it, like 3 seconds on the ball
Yeah.
before I
Yeah.
have to give it back up again, and then try to get another 3 seconds and add up those 3 seconds. They don't really see that. They think like, oh, I'm technical, I gotta be on the ball
Yeah.
the entire time. It's like, no, like that's not the way the game
Yeah.
works.
That's big. Something that you're big on is pockets, space, and not clogging the space of our teammates. And those are things that you don't pick up unless you're watching the game. And the earlier you pick it up, the better. And so that's so true. Do you feel like early success in, because a lot of these players, they're I mean, the dopamine rush from being so good so young is a lot to handle. So can we blame like the young players for having superstar syndrome? And it's like they're doing really incredible things on the field, but then it's like it's the things that help players go to the next level are the things that are the unspeakables, right? And
Mhm.
the unspeakables, like tracking back, transitioning 40 yards after you lose the ball, immediately pressing, learning how to get into good angles, the little things. And so, why do you think, again, because again, I'm hounding on this because it's so big now. I don't know. I am thinking to myself, man, this superstar syndrome, how do we put an end to it? How do you think we put an end to it?
I think honestly, I think it starts at home,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, like I wasn't the best player, but I was a pretty good player growing up in my area, in the Ashburn area. And as much as I got like praise from like teammates, from coaches, like my high school coach, my travel coach, as much praise as we got from there, from like that area, as soon as I got home, or as soon as I got in the car, it was like,
Bang.
you
You
all
got
right,
to do this
you
better.
scored 2 goals. Yeah, but what about this? You lost this 1v1, or you lost the ball here and you didn't track back, or like, why aren't you getting on the ball? Like, why aren't you moving a little bit more? Why aren't you making these runs? So it's like, okay, like I got my praise, but as soon as I got in the car, as soon as I got home, it was like, why that wasn't good enough, or like that
Yeah.
was good, but you could do better,
Yeah.
So it's like I had certain standards I had to meet at home before anybody else gave me any other standards.
That's so true.
So I think my parents kind of cut off my superstar syndrome from like the get
Really
go,
young. Yeah.
and so I kind of had always had that like mentality of like, okay, people are telling me I'm good or I did good, but what are like the people that really matter to me saying?
Yeah.
And it's like, if they're telling me, hey, you gotta work on this, that, all right, then I'm kind of brought back down to earth.
Yeah. And that's a lot of, like you said, and it's hard because I've seen this big egos, fragile personalities, again, we're human. It exists. And again, there's not to shame anyone, but again, it's if this player does well, then they bring success to the team, and if the team is successful, then that's going to attract the best players. And then, I mean, like again, I remember growing up, there was a superstar. But again, we use the word superstar, but that's what it felt like from the U9 to U13 age group in the DMV. I'm not going to say his name. There was a superstar that every summer he would be invited in by Fluminense FC Barcelona's youth academy. He was a very coveted youth player because he was so talented at a young age. He would do things that I was like, that is ridiculous. He was so good. And I remember one of my youth coaches going in at him at a summer camp during a scrimmage because he wasn't tracking back. And the player did this gesture to him after him correcting him. And the thing is, these players had every merit. They were so good. But I remember I heard this. I overheard this. I wasn't supposed to, but I was very nosy. I had big ears, so I was listening. And, he's like, he pulled the player to the side, and I heard the convo, kind of adjusted myself to hear it. He's like, if you can't take criticism, you can't play this game. And that stuck with me. That kid had such an ego. I mean, he was with the top kids at his age group. He was playing at Barcelona. He was with the top players. In the summer, he was playing with Brazil's top players. The Brazilian clubs were like, hey, if you move to Brazil, you're going to have a spot on Fluminense's youth academy. Hey, Barcelona was like, hey, you're really good. Like, once you get of age, like, we're really interested in you if you keep developing. So he was on those radars, but he had really bad habits. And those habits caught up with him. And that's like, that's why me and Coach Junior and all the coaches at Fall State are literally losing our voice, because it's like, we've seen this movie. Don't fall for the trap. It's like if you're watching a horror film and when they open the closet,
Yep.
something is gonna come out. It's like, dude, why are you gonna open
Yeah.
the closet? Don't open the closet. Next thing you know, like Freddy Krueger comes out, and it's like, ah. But it's like, again, do not fall for the trap. And it's almost like painful, because like me and you, like literally, and all the coaches will talk about it. I just like, I feel so bad for so and so player because they're so good, but they think they're so good.
Yep.
It's hard, isn't it, Coach?
Yep.
It is so hard, because it's like you will never overcome those habits again, and eventually those habits will come to get you if you don't change them. Like you can't cheat the game.
No.
And that's what I tried to do. Youth national team player at a young age, for the U.S., playing at some of the top clubs in Europe, and it's like, yeah, I thought I could get away with not defending, and you can't get away with it, and we've seen it, man. And so we're trying to, I think, at the parent level, it's like that's where we can really nip it and bring awareness. That's why we do these podcasts, and that's why we do this. What are some advice that you would give parents out there that are listening that have a superstar child? It's not their fault. Let's just say they're level-headed, but they have bad habits. How do you approach correcting habits?
Well, first of all, I'm not a parent, so I didn't want to
You're right.
act
right.
like I'm telling any of you parents how to parent your kids.
Coach's
Absolutely not.
perspective.
Just a coach, solely coach's perspective. But I think it's just like setting a standard with your kid, being very open with them and being like, hey, like, what's your dream? Like, how serious do you want to take this? Okay, if this is how serious you want to take it, this is the standard you have to meet. So just kind of mutually agreeing with that, like that standard, and being like, okay, everybody has to meet this. From myself as a parent to you as the child and you as the player, everybody has to meet this standard. So if we're all putting in the work, there's no reason for any of us to say, okay, like this is where we messed up or we should have done this better. Like, nope, we're all meeting the standard that we agreed upon, and then we're keeping that. So I think for me, it's just kind of just setting that standard and holding them to it, and not just being like, oh, like you want to win, like if you want to win Super Copa or whatever, Copa Talento or whatever you want to win, like okay, we'll make that work. Like no, we'll send you to like this team that we know that is good enough, but you might not get the best play time.
Right.
Where it's like no, like sometimes for me, I love to tell my guys this, and even my 2015s for futsal is to know how to win, you have to know how to lose. So it's not all about winning, especially at this age. It's not about winning. If anything, you should be losing. You should be learning how to lose at this age. So when you get older, you're used to it, because that's what happens a lot nowadays is kids aren't used to losing. So when they lose,
They
even like
break.
the smallest battles, like not even a game, it could be like a small battle of like they lost the ball, and it's like immediately you can see them start breaking down. It's like we got to be mentally stronger than that. You can't
Mm,
you can't lose a 1v1 and just start pouting, or like you can't take a bad touch and immediately just like like start blaming somebody else and pointing fingers. I think that's like one of our biggest things that we have
yeah.
nowadays is kind of
Adversity. We need adversity, and it's
yeah.
we always think, well, because I grew up very similar to a lot of these kids, and it's like the truth is, yeah, it is really, it's all in the details, and
Yep.
it's all in that culture, and it's all in that those non-negotiables at home, and winning culture. I think is really because at the end of the day, if the end goal of youth, like for a lot of it's an unspoken like law slash rule slash inner conviction that winning it, like we say winning isn't everything, but our actions demonstrate winning is
Doesn't follow
everything.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like in this culture of where winning, because nowadays, here's the truth. And me and you are very honest. And I would say to a fault, we're honest, honest, honest. The thing is, winning is so important nowadays because it seems like parents don't buy into development because if you're not winning, then you're not attracting the best players. And parents and players always want to be surrounded around the best players. And that's very understandable. But as we've seen this movie before, it's not how you start, but it's how you finish. And it's not if you are on the winning team, it's what attributes are you forming. If losing is causing you to form the attributes that are going to create a winner, if Messi losing 4 Copa Americas and World Cups taught him how to win a World Cup, then the journey was good. And so you're hitting on something big, winning culture. It's like we shouldn't feel, and youth coaches shouldn't feel bad that if they lose this tournament, they're going to lose half the team. But do you see that sometimes?
Yep. Yep. I think it's like, especially with the tournaments, especially with all this type of stuff where like parents put so much weight into that,
Yeah.
and it's like I think parents shouldn't be looking at, oh, where are the best players. They should be more looking at where are the best coaches,
Yeah.
because I think that's where, at least our generation, I think that's where what separated us a little bit more.
Yeah.
Our generation, we had so many good coaches back then. Like you could pick out so many good coaches from different clubs
Big
that
time.
everybody kind of had an experience with. Like, oh, you know this coach from this club, and like
Yeah.
so many people are like, oh, I've heard about him so much. Like I've heard about him, or I've worked with him before on a 1v1,
Yeah. Session.
one on
Yeah.
one training session. Where so many parents are like, oh, what's the best club, or where are the best players at? It's like, no, like obviously your environment is important, but if your environment kind of starts at the head,
Yeah.
you know, and the head is who's the director, who's the coach, who's like the head coach of that team or of that
That
age
age
group,
group. Yeah.
and I think that's where parents should kind of focus on a little bit more. Is like, okay, who am I putting my kids? Who am I putting in charge? In charge,
Yeah.
who am I putting at the head of like teaching my kid and like kind of making their dreams come true,
Yeah.
and like being a little bit more specific in that area instead of like, oh, are the best kids here? Is like, no. Sometimes if you follow the best coach, the best kids will also
Yeah.
follow.
That's so
You know?
true. That's a big one because even me in my youth career, I was on the under 14, under 15 national team, and I remember the director of U.S. Soccer being like, "Hey, look, you need to get on an MLS club." But I was like, "I have a really good coach," and I think it's a cultural issue where it's like people don't really believe that. Like we say we want development, but again, if again the best players are there, people are like, "Oh, that's where I want to go."
Yep.
So then, how do you attract the best players? Is it on the grounds of development or is it on the grounds of winning? And that's the question that, again, that's why I'm so glad to be club neutral. Because, again, here's the thing a good coach can win at the youth level. Like, you can manipulate the result. I'll tell you,
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
100%. If you,
100%.
there are tactics that you can use to win you matches that go against development, but it'll win you matches. What can I do at the youth level? I can park the bus. I can put my 2 fastest, most aggressive players up front, and I can send and press.
Yep.
And I can win a result, but I'm not teaching players how to play out of the back. I'm not teaching players how to be technical,
Decision-making.
decision making, Because again, I'm gonna play out of the back to invite the pressure, so I learn how to play out of the back. And it's okay if I make mistakes at that age, because at the end of the day, if I do master playing out of the back, that's why I saw Inter Miami versus PSG yesterday. They couldn't play out of the back. The press was too heavy, and the times they did get out, it was beautiful. But because those kids, those players, if from when they were kids, were playing out of the back and learning how to play out of the back, PSG pressuring them wouldn't be anything. That's why
It'd be
La
nothing.
Masia, that's why the teams in Spain being pressed and playing out of the back is normal. That's just normal.
Like, do
But
we ever hear like, oh, Barca Academy or Barca U10s or U11s just won like
so
so
and
and
so
so
cup.
cup? Like, we never hear that stuff.
No.
We never hear like, oh, they have the best like, or they've won this cup like this many times in a row. Like, no, we just hear Barca has the best youth
Factory,
academies
yeah.
because they're putting 15-year-olds on professional pitches.
Yeah.
It's
No.
not because they're winning these like 17 cups in a row, like
Yeah.
or like these small tournaments. They're probably losing them.
Yeah.
But what matters is they're developing them as they go on. You know,
Development. And I think again, we want to change the culture. We want to change the perspective, and that's why we do these. We get on cameras, we get on things, because at the end of the day, we don't want to see this talented generation of players go to waste.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that these players get the reward for their ability. And so it's us as coaches, we want to make sure we pour in everything we have into them, because at the end of the day, I know you and every coach at Fall State coaches from a place of, I want to see this player make it so bad because I know what it takes. I know what I did wrong. I want to give you everything
exactly.
that I didn't get so that you can make it, because my joy, your joy, all of the coaches' joy is going to be sitting down, eating a burger, and watching them play in that stadium, whether that's D1, D2, or pro. That's our goal. How we'll close with this. How have your personal soccer failures influenced you as a coach?
Oh man, I think that's the main reason I became a coach.
Yeah.
Was because some of those quote unquote failures I had, really pushed me to kind of fall in love with the game again.
Yeah.
Because I kind of as my playing career kind of started coming to an end, mainly due to injuries and stuff, and yeah, that really pushed me to kind of just learn about the game, study it, really like look into it on a deeper aspect, and
Mm.
kind of because at the end of the day, I only started coaching because I got injured and I wanted to make a team with some friends just to kind of mess around,
Yeah.
get some touches in every once in a while, but that slowly turned into a passion of just
Yeah.
like, okay, like there's actually a lot that goes behind this and
Yeah.
actually being a coach, and especially going into the youth game. Once I got into the youth game, learning the developmental aspect of it and kind of being able to see kids that weren't at like a high level start to make those first steps into becoming a somewhat high level player, and
Yeah.
kind of learning the small little things that I learned as a kid as well. So I think that was a big thing that kind of pushed me, was kind of like learning how to really form somebody's soccer IQ, and
Yeah.
somebody's like soccer personality,
Yeah, big
And
time.
that's something that really attracted me, and kind of was like kind of a game changer for me.
Heck yeah,
And
no,
kind of
that-
like pushed me to be like, okay, how can I help the next kid not mess up where I messed up?
Mm.
Because that's the biggest thing for me, and that's the biggest my biggest why of why I coach is how can I help these next kids, whoever it is, no matter what your goals are, even if it's just to get better
Yeah,
or if it's to go pro, is how can I help you guys not make the same mistakes I made?
that's deep, man. And I think that's the common denominator between all the false eight coaches, is that we're all trying to correct what went wrong in us. We're trying to study the game and kind of make sure that doesn't happen in them, because we know the pain of developmental errors. You can have a complete different life if I would have fixed this. And I could have gotten more out of my ability if I would have fixed this, and this. So at the end of the day, we are passionate about youth development. I've known Coach Junior for a while. All the coaches, we're passionate about youth development, because ultimately, and the reason why we ever like want to correct the culture, even in the homes of every individual, is because we know the talent that these players have, and we want to make sure they get the best out of it. And if that comes with maybe sometimes saying, hey, readjust this way, shift this, do it this way, we're coming from a place of, we know we were once the very kids we coach. We grew up in the very similar ecosystem. We know where we went wrong. we want to do our best to make sure they don't fall for the same mistakes.
Yeah, and something I really appreciate, especially here at False A, is that none of the coaches coach with egos.
Yeah.
Like all of us know exactly how to kind of take our egos and just put it to the side.
Yeah.
Just for those like couple hours that we're with the kids,
Yeah.
or if we're at a tournament, we know how to just put our egos aside and know how to say, this isn't about me anymore.
Yeah.
It's about you guys.
Yeah.
Because I think that's something that kind of gets lost in translation a little bit too, where egos come into play, and it's like it's bigger than that. It's bigger
Yeah.
than us in general at this point.
We're the
'cause-
background.
Yeah, we're the background. We're just the support at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
We're
No, we
not-
had our time. We had our opportunity.
Yep.
And-
We had everything in our hands, and like I always tell the kids, it's still in your hands. For
Yeah.
us, it got taken away already.
Yeah.
So like for them, it's like, okay, you guys still have a chance. Take it.
Yeah, no, that's big, and I love that. And Coach Junior, we're super happy to have you at Fall State. I'm always so excited, and I always take away your nuggets, and I always feel like you say something, and then I'm copying exactly what you said, because like, hey, that sounds so good. So super thankful to have you on this. I can't wait for more episodes, and again, thank you so much, man.
No, thank you for having me, Coach, and thank you guys for listening.
Let's go. Boop, 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 boop.